Hello, my dears. I'm back after a short break of like less than 12 hours. What's up, Deep Space Debrief? What's up, Reg? What's up, Josh? What's up, Alex? Tuning in from your day job, doing a house remodel. Awesome. Chill day. How's everyone's day going? Cool. My day is cool. Let's see. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hopefully, I can entertain you at your day jobs, since this is mine. All right. So this is going to be a pretty chill stream. It's not going to be particularly focused. But I do want to talk about some astral plane stuff and Golden Dawn astral plane stuff that I've been looking at. That's really cool. And then I would actually like to talk about what's going on in Syria. So let's see if we can get to that, because it's pretty disturbing. So let's just kick it off. So just to let you know, today is Adept Initiative 2. By the way, happy St. Patrick's Day. And speaking of elementals, leprechaun elementals, today is basically the time to join Adept Initiative 2. It is now open. The exercises have begun, and it's a full 8-week course on mastering the astral plane. Hands-on, practical. It's not a course like some of my other ones. So for instance, if you took Adept 1, a lot of Adept 1 is teaching by talking about, sharing concepts, and it's meant to be introductory for people who don't know, don't have much magical experience. Adept Initiative 2 is not that. It's advanced. It's for people who have taken Adept 1 or who have comparable experience, meaning if you can meditate for about half hour a day, and ideally, what's up, Paul? What's up, James? What's up, Resurrection Magus? And what's up to you, homie? And I mentioned Syria, not Serbia. So while Adept 1 is very much about me kind of like talking, there's lots of PowerPoints, it's me talking and sharing all this information. Adept 2 is all practical. It's assumed that you already are a practicing magician when you go into that. Oh, hello, Element 1115. Illyrium, very nice. So it's gonna, some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about is how to get onto the astral, how to do rituals on the astral, how to build temples on the astral, how to travel around the tree of life, how to interact with various beings there. It's pretty wild. It beats PlayStation, although it's more mentally strenuous, I must warn you. It takes a lot of energy. But today's the day to get in. So it's adept.magic.me. There we go. And today's the day. So check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. And I'll run an ad for it in a bit. Okay, so go check that out. And so what I've been doing, obviously, a lot of research into the astral. And when most people, at least within the Hermetic tradition, first start looking at astral work, they usually go with Liber O by Crowley, which is a great place to start. But, a lot of Crowley's instructions are, of course, paraphrases of Golden Dawn, either Golden Dawn instructions or instructions on related practices that he got from friends. So, for instance, some of Crowley's exercises came from mountain climbing buddies. Some of them came from another Golden Dawn member, Alan Bennett, one of my great heroes, who went to the East and brought back Buddhist and Hindu techniques, and then Crowley went to visit him in Ceylon and learn them firsthand. But most of Crowley's stuff is from the Golden Dawn. And you have to remember that, just like, although Crowley was a Golden Dawn initiate, just like with, some of the great leading lights of the 20th century, Crowley, Dion Fortune, Florence Farr, Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula, Arthur Machen, a phenomenal and very underrated weird fiction writer, Algernon Blackwood, another awesome writer, of course, MacGregor and Moyna Mathers. There's probably lots of others that I'm forgetting. The Golden Dawn was really a who's who of Victorian England, of at least, Victorian era goths and furries. What's up, Vince? So what that means practically is when you're reading Crowley's instructions, you're reading paraphrases of Golden Dawn stuff, because although he broke his oaths and described the Golden Dawn system in the Equinox, the actual gray papers, as far as I know, were not mass published during his lifetime. That fell to Israel Regardie. And by the way, what Regardie published was not the original Golden Dawn material. It was the material of the Stella Matutina branch of the Golden Dawn, which I believe is still in operation in New Zealand. I think even Jazz Coleman from Killing Joke was a member. So, and that was run by the Felkins. Dr. Felkin, Felkin. By that time, the main Golden Dawn had disintegrated. So what that means practically is we now have, if you want to go back to the Golden Dawn stuff, which you should, you know, every magician, Western magician needs to at some point, you know, you have to. The original stuff is now printed, and so practically speaking, what's the too long didn't read on this? You can often get better instructions, quite often get better instructions on the magic side of ceremonial magic, astral, Kabbalah, from Golden Dawn papers than you can from Crowley. That's not the case with Eastern techniques like yoga, pranayama, all that. That you can't get in the Golden Dawn. And part of Crowley's genius was that he was able to synthesize the techniques of the Golden Dawn, which do represent the best Western magic has to offer, certainly did at the time. It was a roundup of everything that had come before, including Agrippa and all of that. I lost my train of thought already. Oh boy, it's going to be a day. It's going to be a day. So anyways, so one of the things that I want to share with you, so I was looking at the Golden Dawn flying rolls. And the flying rolls were kind of like, I believe it was kind of like something like their internal magazine, much like secret orders now usually have their own lodge periodical, which is cool. So I want to read you some interesting flying rolls that I found. And then let's see where we can get to. So this is flying roll 5. Let me pull this up actually. Here we go. All right, so here we go. Flying roll 5 by Very Honorable Frater Resurgam of the Golden Dawn, which was the magical name of Dr. Edmund William Berridge. There are many, many Golden Dawn practitioners that we don't hear anything about anymore, just because they weren't obsessive self-promoters like Crowley or to some extent Fortune, or Mathers for that matter. All right, here we go. So this is, I think, a profoundly good conceptual framework on what we're talking about when we're talking about the astral. Because one of the things I say in that course is the astral plane is essentially the imagination. Okay, and I know that sounds less glamorous than astral plane, but this is one of the many cases in magic where all this fanciful language just gets in the way. And I think this essay, this flying roll, does a very good job of talking about that straight from the source. So let's take a look at this. Some thoughts on imagination by Very Honorable Frater Resurgam. The uninitiated interpret imagination as something imaginary in the popular sense of the word, i.e., something unreal. Hopefully you can hear me, by the way. But imagination is reality. When a man imagines, he actually creates a form on the astral or even on some higher plane, and this form is as real and objective to intelligent beings on that plane as our earthly surroundings are to us. This form which imagination creates may have only a transient existence, productive of no important results, or it may be vitalized and then used for good or evil. To practice magic, both the imagination and the will must be called into action. They are co-equal in the work. Nay, more, the imagination must precede the will in order to produce the greatest possible effect. The will unaided can send forth a current, and that current cannot be wholly inoperative, yet its effect is vague and indefinite because the will unaided sends forth nothing but the current or force. The imagination unaided can create an image, and this image must have an existence of varying duration, yet it can do nothing of importance unless vitalized and directed by the will. When, however, the two are conjoined, when the imagination creates an image and the will directs and uses that image, marvelous magical effects may be obtained. The following instances may serve to illustrate the operation of magical projection, which I have practiced myself and partly taught. Uh-oh. This is I probably shouldn't read this. Oh, no. Oh, God. I'm probably breaking. Okay, I probably shouldn't read this online. Oh, man. Okay. Don't use this for... Only use this for good, okay? Actually, no. There's too many evil people lurking on the internet. I can't read it out loud. I can't read it out loud. Oh, man. Okay, this is a bit of a buzzkill. This is a bit of a buzzkill. See, even now, you know, let me hop off a bit here. So, we hear a lot about oaths of secrecy in magic, and sometimes I think we should bring them back because there's just too many jackasses out there. There's a lot of jackasses running around doing their nonsense. All right. It is too sensitive to give out. Okay, well, unfortunately, and this was not intentional. Okay, this is, by the way, here's the back end of the course. Okay, this is it is. Okay, I'll show you the course. So, all right, I know that's a total tease, and I'm sorry about that, but there are too many. I just don't know where these videos go to, and there's too many jackasses out there. Okay, but it is part of the course. I know. It's super annoying. I know it sucks. But instead, I'm going to show you some of the back end of the Adept Initiative 2, where all this information is available. So don't worry, Alex. Alex already has access to it because he's in the course. Yeah, I'm sorry to blue balls, you guys. All right, but look, this is what the Adept Initiative course looks like on the back end. And I think hopefully I can route in the sound. Let's give this a shot and see if we can do this. Okay, I hope this sound works. Can you hear this? Yes, hello there. Welcome to the Adept Initiative 2. This has been long in coming. It has been 5 years since we first did Adept Initiative 1. Let me know if you can hear this. And yeah, you're going to have an incredible time in this course. This course is largely going to be focused on the astral plane and ceremonial magic and how those two things
this is the first
interact. You're going to... And then we've got... Check all this out. We've got prep work. We've already got 2.5... Oh, look who this is. We've already got 2.5 weeks of content up. Hello. So now's the time to join. All right. A person. But at first, things are going to be very subtle. We're doing a very subtle alchemical process. So just so I don't blue balls you, I'll give you a little preview of some very expensive material. We are going to start getting into our preparatory practices. Cheers. Very appreciated. Are designed to get you to begin so this is a good question. So Meatwolf is asking, what is the overlap between OG Adept and the new? They're the same course. It's just that this one is streamlined, refined, and better produced. So you're good to jump to Adept 2. Absolutely. You're absolutely good to do that. And I would say, like, if you've taken my courses and applied the techniques, you're probably good to do Astral 2. If you can meditate for half an hour and you can do a lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, that's pretty low bar. You can do Adept 2. All right. So here's experientially the difference between the physical and the astral. These are very different things. But the difference is very subtle. During that time also, you're going to be working consciously and unconsciously of separating the perception of the astral from the perception of the material. Now, the number one difficulty that you're likely going to face in this process is making it too complicated and second guessing it, because this process is literally a process of transitioning into your imagination. So not only does our culture have a lot of persistent biases about the imagination, but even more so than that, we can be underwhelmed by it. So in many cases, expect astral travel to at first be somewhat underwhelming. At first, as time goes on, it becomes much, much more deep, profound. Okay. Oh, who's that? Who's that good-looking fellow there? Themselves. So you may have already. Somebody front Brandon the money for the course. Somebody please. Somebody send Brandon a scholarship. He seems sincere. Well, yes, hello, and welcome. So we got back more to the next unit of. So we got 2 weeks on just how to get onto the astral. Fanciful. We got projecting the body of light. Yoga is critical. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the second preparatory week of the Adept Initiative, where we're locking in all of our. We got some background reading. Here's how to actually transfer yourself to the astral. Look at that. Look at that. All right. Nice fella. See you next time. Oh, okay. Save, right? I'm a hot plains drifter. Bring your consciousness into it. Okay, so let's recap real quick, because this is actually the most important part of this entire early preparatory process. So far, you've refreshed your practices from Adept Initiative 1 or comparable practices, so meditation. Secondly, you've begun to explore and visualize the local astral. And third, here's a little recap for the last 2 days, you should have been visualizing yourself standing in front of yourself very, very clearly, thereby beginning to formulate and exteriorize what it takes for you to get. It should be a view. Okay. From your. We got. And then. In addition. Okay, this part's funny. I gotta play this for you. And get into your astral body. There's more than enough there to get started with. So if you're just starting this course, begin with that material. In addition, okay. I provided a bunch of additional reading. Here, this I will read. Tell you what, I'm going to read this. This is from Crowley's Autohagiography, a description of astral travel and practice. I'm going to go grab his autobio, and then I'll read that to you, because that doesn't break any oaths. And then we've got further reading. And then in today's unit, we talk about, and I'll give you a little tip here, image streaming, which is a way to overcome aphantasia, because there are some students who have aphantasia and wrote into me, and then I addressed it in this one. So aphantasia is an actual condition where it's hard, if not impossible, to visualize. Don't worry, we have a fix. It's called image streaming, and we talk about it in this unit. Okay, so there's a cool little preview. And just so I don't blue balls you, because I would hate to do that. I would hate to leave you hanging. I'm going to read you from a little bit about the astral from Crowley. Hold on a second. All right, here we are. Here's the felon himself. So, yeah, sorry to blue balls you, but I guarantee you that Crowley is a much more entertaining writer than Bainbridge. And this is from chapter 26, if you want to follow along in the home game, if you have this book. It's also free online. What's up, Jason? Exploration Arcanum. And let's see, chapter 26. He gives a great description of astral travel. This is when he's, I believe, in his mid-20s. This is better. This is better than the other one and doesn't get dicey. So I'm not going to leave you hanging. Don't worry. So this is from his mid-20s when he's traveling around America and Mexico. He goes to El Paso in Texas. This is fun. I broke the journey at El Paso, coming straight from the quiet civilization of Mexico. It was a terrible shock to find myself in touch with the coarse and brutal barbarism of Texas. Now that's not fair, Crowley. Judge you can't judge Texas on El Paso, which is one of the biggest hellholes in America. Adam says, could you kind of preview how to choose which pentagram? Oh, no, that's coming up in the course, Adam. We're not there yet. We're not there. But I will do that. Don't worry. We're going to be talking about that a lot. All right. And he goes to San Francisco and calls it a glorified El Paso, a madhouse of frenzied money-making and frenzied pleasure-seeking with none of the corners chipped off. Very funny. All right. Let's see. Here we go. So this is 1898. So he's still in the Golden Dawn at this point. All the controversy hasn't happened yet. He's still a young student in the Golden Dawn, so he's practicing their basic techniques. In the autumn of 98, my friend Julian Baker, whom I hastened to see in London on my return from the Alps, took me on my first astral journey. The details of the method are given in Liber O. I may here outline them thus. Imagine an image of yourself standing in front of you. Transfer your consciousness to it. Rise upward. Invoke the forces desired by the prescribed methods. Observe their appearance. Test their authenticity. Enter into conversation with them. Travel under their guidance to the particular part of the universe which you desire to explore. Return to Earth. Cause the body of light to coincide spatially with the physical. Reconnect them using the sign of Harpocrates. Resume normal consciousness. Record the experience. Test its value by the critical methods advocated in the Equinox. So if that's a mouthful, don't worry, because we're going to be teaching you all of that step by step in a totally straightforward, rational way that does not break common sense or scientific reason in Adept Initiative 2. Go there now while you still can. Okay. After only a few such journeys, I found myself much stronger on the wing than my tutor. He was always getting into trouble. Demoniac forms would threaten the circle. He tired easily. He often placed confidence in lying spirits. In fact, his goodwill exceeded his ability. It all came as natural to me as swimming does to a duck. I picked up all the technical tricks of the trade almost by instinct, such as enable one to detect imposition on the instant, to banish disturbing elements, to penetrate the veils and pacify the warders of the secret sanctuaries, and to assure the accuracy of the information obtained by methods the precision of which precludes the possibility of coincidence. So Paul, this is in Equinox number 2, volume 1, number 2. But this, what I'm reading specifically, is from the Confessions, chapter 26. I soon found it necessary to develop the body of light. I explored such remote, exalted, and well-guarded aditya that the necessary invocations and sacraments required more energy than was at the disposal of the body of light, which normally separates from its physical envelope. The result was that I soon built up a body so powerful that it was clearly visible to the physical vision of all but the grossest types of humanity. It also acquired an independence of my conscious will, which enabled it to travel on its own initiative without my knowledge. Strange tales began to circulate, some doubtless true, others probably colored, and of course, not a few baseless inventions. Here's some wild stories. He shares some wild stories in here. As a type of the first class, let me quote the following. Greatly honored Frater SRMD, that's McGregor Mathers, one of the 3 heads of the order, had asked me to visit, and Crowley's direct mentor, had asked me to visit him in Paris. He expected me in the afternoon. My train was late. I was tired and dirty. I postponed my call till the following day. To my surprise, my host and hostess did not greet me quite as I expected. In the course of our talk, they made allusions which were quite unintelligible. At last, we became aware that we were talking at cross purposes. The crash came when Sora Vestigia, I'm not exactly sure. I believe Vestigia was Moina Mathers, McGregor Mather's wife, and also an initiate. The crash came when Sora Vestigia insisted, but you said so yourself at tea. I couldn't remember that I'd ever been there to tea. On my one previous visit, I had lunched one day and dined the next, but no more. At tea, I echoed, bewildered. Yes, at tea, she repeated. Surely you remember. It was only yesterday. We compared times. I was then dozing in the train from Calais. It then came out that I had called quite normally, though I seemed tired and dazed. I had stayed about an hour. Nothing had led them to suspect that I was not physically present. Of the third class, let's see. Yeah, this is really funny. When I began to develop this power consciously, I obtained considerable success. At the time of this journey, I had arranged to visit a sister of the order who lived in Hong Kong at prearranged times so that she might be looking out for me. Several of these visits turned out well. She saw and heard me, and on comparing notes, we found that our reports of the conversation agreed. But I was not able to act on matter. I used to try to knock things off the mantelpiece, but in vain. On the other hand, when I reached Hong Kong, I recognized the place perfectly and picked out her house on the hillside, though I had never seen so much as a photograph. These numerous practices were assigned to a regular schedule. 5 different periods of the day were to be devoted to one or the other. Pretty wild stuff. Yeah, then This is very indicative of young students of magic. This is so funny. They do stuff like this. He then says this is unrelated to astral, but he talks about going to Waikiki, and he says, I went on with my magical and other work. In particular, I invented a practice which has proved very useful. Its object is to prevent mosquitoes from biting one. The method is to love them. So there you go. Next time mosquitoes are biting you, just love them. One reminds oneself that he was very Buddhist at this period. One reminds oneself that the mosquito has as much right to his dinner as a man has. It is difficult to give the exact shade of feeling, and more so to feel it. One begins by lying defenseless against the enemy and sternly repressing the impulse to wave, to slap, and to scratch. After a little perseverance, one finds that the bites no longer become inflamed, and this preliminary success is soon followed by complete protection. They will not bite one at all. Well, I've never tried that, but that's kind of wild. All right, so there's Crowley's depiction of the astral plane, and if this sounds interesting to you, worry not, because we will teach it to you in the Adept Initiative 2 at adept.magic.me. Oh, damn, we got more people getting gifted memberships by Exploration Arcanum. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Everyone go check out his podcast, Exploration Arcanum. It's a great occult podcast. Let's see. Let's check out some of the comments. Looks great and highly professional. Brandon says, I have flickers of visualization, but yeah, aphantasia is one of my biggest issues that can get me down at times in doing magic. Let's talk about this at length, because this is a very, very, very common thing. I hear this from everyone. Not everyone, but I hear this from a lot of people. I can't visualize. Okay. It's kind of like or people will say, I can't remember my dreams. So the cure for not remembering your dreams is writing them down. And with enough practice, you'll be amazed how much it opens up. But for aphantasia, which is an actual condition, I don't know if you could self-diagnose it or not, but I know that it is a condition. Image streaming is an excellent method to get around that. And image streaming is not a method that is known or practiced within the occult community at all, as far as I can tell. Certainly not within the traditional magical orders. If I'm wrong, I'd be happy to be wrong, but I don't see anyone talking about it. But you can find information about it all over the internet. There's whole subreddits, I believe, dedicated to aphantasia and overcoming it. There's lots of YouTubes on it. If you search image streaming on YouTube, you'll find videos of people talking about it. And essentially what it is instead of letting your mind direct your thoughts, you speak out loud what you want to see. And the idea is to do a recorder to record it. You speak into a recorder what you're trying to do, and then what you're seeing. And the act of using your voice is powerful. Your voice speaking, it almost becomes like a magical incantation, right? Because you're speaking while visualizing it, and then the speech focuses and guides the visualization. Why it works, I don't know, but it actually works very, very well. It's not particularly complicated to learn. You can find information on it pretty easily online. I never bought courses or took books, read books about it or anything like that. I think it can be learned fairly easily. Go check it out. Image streaming. It also is very good for if you already can visualize. It'll really help you increase your visualization power. It's pretty phenomenal. It's a technique that I think everyone should know about. So I'm mentioning it on YouTube as well. Image streaming. Okay, so check it out. Let's see. Josh says, when I'm doing astral work and physically, I came across the idea of, are you looking at yourself and when you're seeing yourself? Example, LBRP is earth, left foot, or right. Always do left, but I've been just, I'm not exactly sure what you mean. So once you're in your astral body, you don't need to worry about whether you're looking at yourself or not. You should be interacting with the astral as if you actually had a body. Bishop says, well, we're live. I don't know how to pronounce the Greek, so I'll just say John King. Hello from Greece. First time here on your live. Hello, welcome. Does anyone have bad experiences with the LBRP? Does it light you up on the astral? I know that some occult writer at some point stated that it lights you up on the astral, but it's also a banishing and protective ritual. And so I'm not sure if you're having bad experiences, you can say what they are specifically. But if you're concerned about that, there is a second ritual called the Rose Cross ritual, which is also a Golden Dawn ritual, which makes you invisible on the astral. So if that is something you're concerned about, throw that ritual onto your stack. Paul says, often when I attempt getting out of my body for astral work, I'll get very close, then my body will cramp or twitch or other annoying disturbances that block the progress. Yeah. So, well, first of all, this is why yoga is so important. Once you start trying to do astral, you understand why things like holding still, learning to hold your body still for long periods of time is important, right? Because we get that, like any magic book you read, they're going to tell you need to be able to turn your mind off, you need to be still, but they won't tell you why. And often it's because they don't know. They just assume they did it, so you have to. Okay. And yes, it greatly improves. It's great for everything. It's not just for one reason. It improves every area of life. But by and large, the yoga methods, at least taught in Liber O, which is not normal Hatha yoga, but Raja yoga and sitting still for long periods of time, are very, very preparatory for astral work. Now, these days, particularly with what you're talking about, because when you're first getting it onto the astral, it becomes a kind of tug of war between your imagination and your body. And the idea is, over time, you decrease your focus on your body sensations and increase your focus on that which is imaginary or astral, right? But this takes time and practice. And yoga really helps get your body out of the way. But these days, unlike those days, the Victorian or Edwardian period, we have this awesome thing called, can anyone guess? Yes, sensory deprivation tanks. Sensory deprivation tanks are awesome for this type of thing. They're phenomenal. Now, some people, not myself, but maybe one day, that would be great. Some people are lucky enough to have their own, which is, I believe at one point there was a Kickstarter. Somebody kickstarted a fairly affordable sensory deprivation tank based on a canvas tent that you can get for your house. I don't know. I've never seen one. I don't know if that is still going or not. But however, sensory deprivation tanks, thanks to Joe Rogan, are now everywhere, right? You can go rent them in lots of cities around the world. Usually it's about an hour at a time. That's usually not enough time for me, so I like to double book, which can get pricey, but it's definitely worth it, at least for an experiment. And I will say that sensory deprivation tanks takes about 3 sessions in a tank for you to get the hang of it, because normally you're going to be like doing this kind of the whole time and freaking out about not getting the salt water in your eyes or your nose or things like that. And so it takes about 3 sessions to get the hang of it. So don't pass judgment until after your third session. Lots of people do it once and then they're like, I hate this. It's like, well, you didn't do it long enough. But once you get in the groove with a sensory deprivation tank, the tank is full not just of water, but of water that is ultra soaked in, like, super dense with Epsom salt so that you float on it. And of course, Epsom salt is magnesium, and magnesium will deeply relax your entire body. It's awesome. So even just to relax. But that's an ideal setup. You know, like if I had my druthers, I would just buy a sensory deprivation tank and be in there doing astral work. But for the rest of us, we have yoga, right? But together, practice together, yoga and sensory deprivation tanks, now we're talking, right? Because yoga will give you the physical discipline to still your body. Now you bring that into the tank and you can get places that people who are, you know, not used to that type of thing will struggle to. So that's one thing that I recommend, Paul, in order to kind of work on that. And, you know, you can do both. Depth tank experiences will very much help you with your... In fact, I know what I'm going to show you next. So I'll read you some stuff from John Lilly. I lost my train of thought, so I was thinking about John Lilly. So, but practice in yoga and practice in depth tanks are mutually aiding, right? They go together neck and neck, and each informs the other. Josh says, LBRP is great. It banishes all negative aspects of the element. So yes, I lost it. So yes, it could shift your life, but that's why you start slow. Yeah. Okay. John says, what is the soul? What am I, like a guru or something? I don't know. There's a whole lot of answers to that from a lot of cultures around the world. And there's a lot of parts of the soul as well. So I'll say this. If you want to know, study either Kabbalah or Vedanta. Smash that like button, says Jason. That's right. That's right. Don't forget. Smash that like button. Come on. Like and subscribe. It costs you nothing. The channel's growing. There's 100 people on right now. I expect each and every one of you to like and subscribe, or I will know with my astral powers. But yes, everyone please like and subscribe. Please share and tell people about the channel. You can super chat. Please become a member of the channel. Check out the merch. We're going to add some new stuff. All right. 93 STR. Oh, wow. Paul says the mosquito trick works. Last summer while camping on Mount Shasta, I invited them to drink their fill, and I haven't been bitten by a mosquito ever since. Wow. Did you get that out of this book, or did it just occur to you? Interesting. That's pretty wild. I've never been to Mount Shasta. I'm curious if you have any weird stories about it, because I know it's a wild place. Okay, Jean says, what's the spinning sensation when meditating? If you're having a spinning sensation, keep meditating. It will come. It will pass. Make sure that your focus stays in your body. Bishop says, is the tea party like an apparition? I don't understand. Jean says, I believe about image streaming. Is it mandatory to speak it, or can you imagine a voice narrating in your head? No, it's spoken out loud. Meatwolf, thank you so much. Any red flags regarding Hemisync, Gateway Tapes, or Bob Monroe? Not that I know of, but I haven't done a deep dive on it. Robert Monroe is generally considered one of the experts on the astral, but, you know, I tend to stick with the classic Golden Dawn approach. SB says, what are things that happen in dreams that we should be looking out for? Literally everything. You should write everything down, because usually you won't understand why something is meaningful until months after the fact. KS says, do you know anything about Wellbutrin taking away ability to see the visuals of the pentagrams and things when you're drawing them? I do not believe that that is a side effect. And it's certainly not a reason to stop taking it. I don't think that that is a direct connection. John says, John says, can you bring items with you in dreams? Yeah, you sure can. A good way to the good method is dream incubation, where you can write down an intention and put it beneath your pillow. Or imagine if there's something you want to take with you in a dream, put it under your pillow. So there's your answer. Paul Ferguson said, okay, so Don Craig said LBRP lights you up on the astral. I like Don Craig. I met him. He was very generous to me. Modern magic is great. All I will say, and Don Craig would agree with me on this, is it's not the authoritative final word on magic. So your mileage may vary. Practice and get the experience, and don't freak out about something unless it actually becomes part of your experience, because otherwise it's just hearsay out of a book. Joel Breen says, what is the importance of LBRP? The mix of English and Hebrew seems like it's something that was just made up. It wasn't made up. The LBRP is an old continental Rosicrucian ritual that's probably at least 200 to 300 years old and was practiced by Rosicrucians in Europe. But I have found precursors of the ritual in John Dee's diaries. So, and that was given to him by the angel. So it wasn't made up. The English is because it's usually done by English speakers, and the Hebrew, and that can be put into any other language. It doesn't matter that it's in English. You can translate it into any other language. And the Hebrew is because you're using Hebrew God names, which are in Hebrew. So, and the importance of it is everything. It's the most important ritual in all of magic. And even Crowley said towards the end of his life that if you properly understood the LBRP, you would have the whole thing. You would have the Philosopher's Stone. So it's a ritual. I practice it for 30 years, and I get more. I continue when I do it a lot. I continue to get more and more and more out of it. Desert Dweller says, missed the last couple streams, but I'm glad I caught this one. I am too. Glad to be here. Glad you're here. Exploration Arcanum says, visualize an orb of light between your hands. Llewellyn Books Magic 101. Yes. Alex says, would you say playing around in the astral will also help progress on the limbs in Raja Yoga through familiarity? In a way. Okay, yes. And at a high level, yes. And what I mean by that is eventually, and you're going to get this in the course, the astral is another level of Maya, right? It's the Maya that the mind generates when left to its own devices, or in this case, directed. Ultimately, you see through it and you realize it's another level of illusion. So the astral is much like the Zen cone of first there's a mountain, then there's no mountain, then there's a mountain. Meaning, for most people, there's no such thing as an astral plane. When you start doing the practices, there sure as hell is. And then eventually you realize there's no such thing as an astral plane. When you do that, you are now immune to the illusions of your mind. Once you get through it. Right? Once you do that, you stop taking seriously all the visions and apparitions and all this stuff. It just becomes uninteresting to you because you're kind of like, been there, done that. I can control it with pentagrams and hexagrams, whatever, right? It's another level of reality. But you kind of have to go through that to get to the other side. So yes. And so for instance, it's like, I did all my astral work in a long time ago. And I don't, mostly my focus is just meditation. I still do astral stuff, but in a utilitarian fashion. This is hard to talk about unless you've actually been through the experience. But essentially, yes, the way that it helps with Raja Yoga is it helps you to master and control your imagination so that you're driving it instead of it driving you. So that might be a much more common sense way to talk about these practices. Forget all the stuff about astral and blah, 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 all that Ghostbusters stuff, and just think about it like this, particularly when we're talking about Adept Initiative. Last day to join. You're learning magical techniques to direct your imagination in ways that you probably may not have thought possible before. So as I say at the beginning of the course, the astral is the imagination, but an analogy would be everybody has muscles, right? If you're an alive human, you have muscles. But very few people are bodybuilders or trained athletes. Very, very few comparatively. Okay, why is the imagination any different? It's not. Everyone has an imagination, but for instance, somebody who's a professional artist, musician, or writer will have their imagination trained to a much higher level. And somebody who knows these practices actually has the computer code to do it. So by the way, if you're an artist, this is real helpful for getting cool stuff. Like, I would say that, like, if you're an artist, you need to be in this course. It will put you in good stead for the rest of your life. You will never be at a loss for ideas ever again. Straight from the source, not from somebody else. So particularly if you're an artist, you want to be in the Adept Initiative 2. All right. So that's how it helps with yoga. Because even yogis, and by the way, here's a technical difference between Western and Eastern magic. Yogis talk about the astral as well. Absolutely, right? But they see it as a stage that you have to push through in meditation. And in states of deep meditation, some of you may or may not have experienced, it tends to happen spontaneously, and you can get remote viewing and be seeing things at a distance and all kinds of crazy stuff. But it's very distracting because you think, oh my God, I can do all these things now. And then it distracts you from meditation and your meditation practice fails, right? So where Western magic is different is we have a whole computer code for dealing with that level of reality where they just try to, clunk it to the side. Whereas we have a whole system and code for dealing with it that, to my knowledge, does not exist in any other culture. So that's quite helpful. So we can control it with precision, we meaning anyone who trains in these techniques, we, Western magicians, anyone trained in Western magic, doesn't necessarily mean Western people, it means you're trained in Western magic. We have a very precise method of controlling these levels of reality, whereas other people just either get overwhelmed by it completely or try to push past it. And once you really master astral practices, you also realize how full of etc. people are in the spiritual world. Because once you practice with these techniques, you realize, oh, like that's how people are having visions, And you look at these accounts of people like Muhammad, the Archangel Gabriel appeared to me. Well, it's like, my brother in Christ, the Archangel Gabriel appears to me every time I do an LBRP. But I didn't start a world-destroying religion off of it. So you stop taking the things so damn seriously. You realize that they are useful on their own plane, but you don't blow them out of proportion. And blowing astral visions out of proportion is a major cause of suffering for humanity. So it's incumbent upon us that we just learn how to swim in that level so that we're not overwhelmed by it. I hope that answers your question. Okay, Neo Kaneda, nice name, says, I'm not Rogan rich, sir. I can't have that in my house. Well, yeah, none of us can. One day. It's a worthy goal to work towards. But you can definitely rent them. They're all over the world now. You can go to a sensory deprivation tank facility. There's one in LA, Pasadena, that I recommend called Just Float. If you happen to be in LA, I am no longer in LA, but that one's awesome. If you're in LA, definitely check that one out. Just Float Pasadena. Dig it. All right, Josh says, so my point earlier was when you're looking at the pentagram diagram, left foot is earth, but I've noticed some talk about walking. Okay, so I think you're getting confused. There's no floor pentagram in the LBRP. You may be getting this confused with some type of Wiccan ritual or something, but you're not tracing a pentagram on the floor. You're tracing them in the air. So you're not walking along a pentagram. Hopefully that clears it up. Visual OD, I see them selling on Alibaba. I would not trust a sensory deprivation tank on Alibaba, although, hey, it's pretty funny. Hello, Madeline. All right. Yeah, definitely check out a depth tank. Madeline recommends Dolores Cannon's Between Life and Death. I am not familiar with it, but okay. Oh boy. Graviticus, is there a specific meditation you'd recommend to someone with ADHD who struggles with it? Oh man, yeah. I have some ADHD too. I try really hard, but haven't found one that hasn't totally clicked yet. It's tough. I mean, I've said this many times in streams, but I'm going to keep making this point. One thing that I really hope to, in my work, at least bring attention to, which has not been done ever in magic, is different neurologies. Different people have different neurologies. And we've only got really an understanding of that recently. I recommend the book Neurotribes. The author just died. But lots of people, many people have ADHD. Lots of people, they're now, I believe the current estimation is 1 in 30, are on the autistic spectrum. And, for different people have different neurologies. They're working with different hardware. So you can't force the same software for everyone. You have to first factor the hardware. There was a question about Wellbutrin, right? That's a hardware question. And I'm not a psychiatrist, so I can't answer these questions definitively, so please don't make that mistake. But I'll give you my opinions, which is all they are. They're not prescriptions or recommendations. Aphantasia, we're talking, some people have aphantasia. So I think it would be very, very helpful, not just for magic, but for society, to understand that there are different neurologies. And we're not all functioning with the same hardware, and some techniques may work for others where others don't. So for instance, gematria is no problem for autistic people. For the rest of the world, it's bewildering, right? So whereas, like autistic people may deeply struggle with things that involve socialization, not always, but sometimes, where that's no problem at all for the rest of the world, right? Or ADHD, autism, it may be very hard to schedule, to prioritize, things like that, where other people, and this causes, this isn't a minor thing, this causes a lot of frustration in people's lives, because if you're working off of a brain that is not the same as everyone else's, and they are all like, what the hell is wrong with you? Why can't you get up at 7 a.m? Why can't you this, that, and the other? It's like, well, because my brain doesn't work that way. So that's kind of just a general comment that I think is good to keep in mind. But in terms of specific meditation, man, I don't know. I think just consistent, single-pointed focus, consistent, single-pointed dharana. Meditation in general is awesome, right? But consistent, single-pointed focus. Sean says you should go full Tony Levin. I don't know who Tony Levin is. La Miasma. They found tiny shoes made out of mouse skin on Mount Shasta, according to a book on fairies that I read. True story, allegedly. Hilarious. Oh, we got another super chat. Caleb, thank you very much. When would someone usually learn these astral skills in the Golden Dawn or OTO systems? Okay, great question. It's not in the OTO system. It is in the AA system at the neophyte level. And at the Golden Dawn level, I think... So the AA system, the neophyte level subsumes pretty much the entire Golden Dawn. And I believe at the Golden Dawn, it's at the 5-6 level. But I could be wrong. I believe they don't really... the Golden Dawn doesn't really give people magical practices until at least Adeptus Minor, if I remember correctly. Okay. But fairly early on. Resurrection Magus. I have a question. When I was experiencing the delusion of the self, I felt a super malevolent energy outside myself. It made me run out of my apartment. What was that about? Was it my shadow? Keep doing LBRPs. You're, I think, shadow boxing with yourself there. Keep doing LBRPs. D3 says, I wonder if that has anything to do with the lucid dreaming technique Stephen LaBerge put in his book about spinning to stay in the lucid dream. Yeah, I've read that book. Okay, here's a weird story about that book. Check this out, okay? I got a copy of that book, Lucid Dreaming by Stephen LaBerge, when I lived in Santa Cruz. And, of course, it's a classic book. Of course, in the beginning of that book, he starts talking about putting, the classic method of putting reminders everywhere that you're dreaming, okay? I swear to God, about a week into doing this, I realized that Stephen LaBerge's office was on my street. He lived it was right down the street from me. So you can imagine, I'm doing these, I'm looking at all these things, then I walk and there's like LaBerge Dream Institute or whatever the hell it was called. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. True story. Paul says, I got the mosquito trick from a Dakota elder. Wow. And when you're on Shasta, shit like that just makes sense. Place has a serious vibe. Yeah, I gotta go. It's the American Himalayas. And allegedly an entrance to the Hollow Earth. John King says, I've been practicing LBRP for a while. Back then, things got terrible in all ways. Maybe I'm projecting bad stuff to the ritual. Lost job, breakup, less money than ever back then. The LBRP should not do that. But if you're concerned, you can mix it with invoking pentagram rituals. So you might want to check causation correlation there. Bishop says, my family's from Shasta. My aunt Kim was actually mayor. Beautiful nature. Wow, wild. What's up? Okay. Paul says, holy shit, D had the LBRP. He had, I believe, I found the Kabbalistic cross at the very least. It's in there. It's in towards the end of the Spirit Diaries. And I mentioned in the John Dee book that I wrote, I talk about it. Bishop, I was just curious about Crowley's appearance to Mathers while sleeping on the train. Is that the mongoose story? Wow, Ann Henry says, I stopped astral projection work when I got abducted by aliens. Too scary to go back. Wow, what happened there? SB says, why do I feel like a schizo when I see synchronicities, and what synchronicities should be paid attention to? Frankly, practically speaking, none of them. They're just little winks that something is happening, but don't take them too seriously. It's kind of like cities. All right, I'm not going to be able to read every comment. Alex says, sounds incredible for an artist. I'm actually very excited. It's way good for artists of any type. This material is all new to me. Yeah, and we haven't taught it at Magic Me before. Resurrection Magic says, Damien Eccles and I told him that I'm Solomon's temple in a dream. Whatever that means. Well, maybe you are. I don't know. Adam says, Libra O. What is the end goal of magic? Well, that's for you to decide. Fury says, that's very true. I aim to develop my drawing and painting skills, especially to create and manifest my visions and journeys. Meat Wolf, have you ever seen a parallel between the CIA's remote viewing protocols and John Dee and Edward Kelly's methods? That's interesting. Yeah, I can see that. By the way, remote viewers and psychics are used by law enforcement. That's not widely known. But since I know a lot of psychics and have worked with psychics at the corporate level, I know about it. The FBI employs psychics to find missing people. The CIA does. Remotely. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. What are my thoughts on Gurdjieff teachings? Awesome. I've never been in a Gurdjieff group, but yeah. He's definitely somebody worth investigating. Let's see. I have like a scroll wheel on this mouse, which is a super Logitech mouse, but it keeps like moving past people's comments. So if I miss your comment, forgive me. So John or Gene Penetration says, so you're saying you can control your imagination to the point where you have vivid visualization of things. Oh, yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's the name of the game. And you can learn all those techniques at, wait for it. Oh, hell, here's an ad. Stop before you skip ahead. Are you feeling stuck? Why not try Magic and the Occult at magic.me, my school for magic, meditation, and mysticism. That's right, because today's sponsor is me, because I don't have sponsors, because sponsors won't touch my content with a 10-foot pole. That means my sponsor is you and your further spiritual education at magic.me, as seen on the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, Midnight Gospel, Days Digital, Gaia Online, Netflix, Team Human, Vice, and not yet updated on the site, Tetragrammaton with Rick Rubin. Just check out all the stuff that you can learn. The Magic of Tarot with world-renowned tarot master Lon Milo Duquette. Introduction to Magic with me. Meditation, chaos magic, astrology, meditation, unleashing your true will, and lots more. And of course, we're about to start a brand new course, the Adept Initiative 2, which starts on the 16th. You still have time to join. It's going to be incredible. The Adept Initiative 1 changed people's lives all over the world, revolutionizing not just their ability to master the occult, but to master their finances, to master life, to revolutionize their career, their relationships, everything. Everything. It's a true alchemical transformation process, and Adept Initiative 2 is going to be even better. I mean, just look how much I've improved the video quality since I filmed this ad for it a few months. It's going to be phenomenal. Check out what students are saying. They are over the moon, pun intended, with how excited they are about this course. And check it out. You're going to be learning all kinds of cool stuff, from ceremonial magic to Kabbalah to astral projection. We're talking about the big leagues of personal transformation and consciousness evolution here. You're going to have an incredible time. Meet us in class. It's adept.magic.me. You still have a few more days to sign up, but that's it. All right, back to the show. All right. There we go. Okay. So let's see. Yeah, Paul says Eccles' method evokes angels above and below, but only draw pentagrams in the 4 directions. The floor pentagram is Damien Eccles' rendition. Well, you'll have to ask Damien about that. I don't know. I think that's his version of the ritual, so you'll have to ask him. Northern Lights just come into this, heard no problem for the autisms, yeah. Tony Levin was the basis for King Crimson. Okay. Nice. King Crimson. Now we're talking. Yeah. We're going deep territory. Graviticus says, thank you so much. I will keep going. I appreciate it as always, Jason. I appreciate you and your great questions. Thank you very much. Chrysalis says, I have a relevant question for our times. How can magic help us make friends as adults? Wouldn't I like to know? I'm not the person to ask about that. I think that the purpose of magic is getting results IRL, not just spooky for the sake of spooky. Well, yeah, the second part, absolutely. It's a tool. If it works for your life and it makes your life better, use it. If it doesn't, like there's a couple people who said that it's not working for them. Well, don't use it then. Go do something else. If it freaks you out, then maybe it's not for you, right? Not everyone has to do these techniques, but the idea is it's a tool to make your life better, right? Now, in terms of how do you make friends as adults, well, there's one obvious answer to that, which is join. You can join a Masonic lodge, you can join an OTO lodge. I don't necessarily recommend it. I can't vouch for the OTO one way or another, but there's pagan meetups in just about every city. And ultimately it's a shared common interest that you can meet people and talk about with, right? And the other thing about magic people is they tend to be geeks, and geeks tend to share a lot of the same interests. So you're going to find people who are interested in King Crimson, but like Star Trek role-playing games, comics, things like that. So that's cool. Fury says, doing astral work also allows you to see more and more how colored so many spiritual concepts and teachings are. What do you mean by that exactly? You mean biased? And Henry says, I need to learn that Rose Cross ritual. Yeah, it's a good ritual. So Josh says, didn't mean drawing on the floor. I meant like walking into the tree of life backwards or forward like Rigardi. But thanks, Jason. Just a misunderstanding. Thank you for all you do. GG, good game. So I'm not exactly sure. I think you're talking about a Rigardi ritual specifically. So I would need to look at the actual material that you're referencing. Zedekiah says, do you have any personal interpretations of how polytheism, henotheism, pantheism manifests and how certain aspects of gods can inspire and motivate us? Well, just a small question there, Zedekiah. It's too big for this session. Sorry. Let's see. Neo Canada knows a woman who thinks she's a Pleiadian and moved to Mount Shasta. Well, that's the place. Vince says, does one, because of performing the LBRP, bring on the demons within to outright affect your life? No. First of all, there's no demons in the LBRP. It's just angels. So, no, that's not true. Exploration Arcanum says, law enforcement using psychics doesn't surprise me at all. Yep. Do I have any opinions on the reality shifting trend? I don't know what that is. Omega says, opinion on doing psychedelics while doing magic, mushroom, acid, DMT. Okay, look. I would just be lying if I told you that people didn't do that type of thing, or that hasn't been a part of practice since the beginning of, since prehistory, right? Practically speaking, the answer is no, don't do it. Chemonosis, psychedelics, and by the way, in the Astral Course, psychedelics are forbidden, including microdosing. It's forbidden. A good astral, and just to give you a sense of this, a good astral experience should be about 10 minutes. A trip could be God knows how long, right? And also a trip you can't control. In fact, particularly with things like psilocybin or DMT, right? Acid's a little different. Acid's programmable, but DMT, psilocybin, they have their own agenda. And if you try to control the trip, you're going to be in for a rough ride. The point of those drugs is to let go and not control it. They're mystical. Right? Acid, a bit of a different story, but, don't do drugs. Drugs are bad. Let me put it this way. Psychedelics are a brute force instrument. They bash down the door, You just want to open the door. You know, they bashed out, open all the doors at once. You want to open a door, look in it, and close it. And be able to control it. What's up, Oren? Join just now. Whenever I have the flu, I use visualization, and it's more efficient and enlightening than usual. Yeah, that is weird, isn't it? Also, and I don't recommend this, waking up with a hangover for some reason is like instant astral. Why? I don't know, but don't use alcohol for that reason. Danglin Wayne says, Wang says, I think Robert Fripp is a magician, maybe. I would certainly be interested in finding references to that. Northern Light says, what's the best way to find a magic community in your area? Probably Facebook, quite frankly. Probably Facebook. There's also Meetup. Oh, yeah, that's right. Robert Fripp is into Gurdjieff. Yeah. I'm not sure being into Gurdjieff necessarily counts as magic. In fact, Gurdjieff was very down on magic. And I understand where he's coming from to some extent, but also not, where he considered it more illusion. It's like, yes, and it's fun. Yeah, so Neo Kaneda says, oh, shiz, psilocybin is how I shortcut into all these magic stuff. Now, look, are psychedelics a shortcut into the magical world? Yeah, they are. Are they sustainable? No, they are not. Are they controllable? No, they are not. Can they be the basis for a lifelong practice? No, they cannot. Do they replace meditation? No, they absolutely do not. So these things, particularly the natural things, can be part of a toolkit, but they're not for regular use. And by the way, the point of magical practice, okay, let's just cut the crap for a second. I would guess that almost everybody here has taken such substances, okay? In general, people take those when they're younger, college, sometimes not, but, you know, college, early 20s. And those usually have the effect of, even for particularly for hard-headed materialists, kind of blowing open the doors and showing them that other things are possible, right? But it's a preview. It's not the practice itself. So a lot of people who come to meditation, look, there's no secret. For instance, if you go to Hindu and Buddhist groups, like the Hare Krishnas or Brad Warner's Hardcore Zen thing, you're going to find a lot of ex-junkies. You just are, right? Because they've replaced the drugs with the practice. They've just gotten re-addicted to something else. And if you go to Bishop DeVault to sign up for Adapt 2, thank you. And the Haley Bird, $5. Thank you for the super chat. Started following in 2020. Now 3 weeks away from having my first kid. Hey, congratulations. Congratulations. Good on you. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Hopefully everyone can congratulate the Haley Bird. That's a phenomenal achievement, particularly in this day and age when people believe in nothing but themselves. Congratulations, and you have my accolades. And the Haley Bird says, thank you for helping me become a more grounded, responsible, and self-aware human. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and so like Neo Kaneda says, flu with NyQuil or just super tired usually kicks me into astral traveling. So there are all these shortcuts, okay? But none of them are sustainable, and all of them involve, you know, wonky shortcuts or substances that are going to degenerate your brain over time. Fucking NyQuil, DXM, like, yeah, DXM will put you onto the astral. Ketamine will put you onto the astral, right? LSD will put you onto the astral, right? But like NyQuil will fuck your liver, right? Ketamine, God, depends on how you do it, but yeah, ketamine is not good for you, right? So, and I know these things are popular, and frankly, like, look, and again, to cut the crap, believe me, I've taken all of these things in large amounts, okay, over long periods of time. I know my way around substances. I know my way around the whole pharmacopoeia. This all, of course, happened more than 10 years ago, past the statute of limitations, and was all done in Amsterdam where it's all legal. So I'm intimately familiar with all these things, and I'm telling you, they only seem to be shortcuts. And what I was going to say is if you go to magic groups, pretty much everyone's done psychedelics. But all that can be is a preview. The point is to develop the lasting, lifelong practice. And by the way, you don't need to do drugs to preview stuff. In fact, you probably shouldn't. I didn't take drugs for the first 4 or 5 years I was doing magic because I started as a teenager. And I'm really glad I did it that way, because if I hadn't, I would always have in my mind the fact, oh, it might have just been drugs. So again, a clean astral travel requires no substances and it only requires ritual and meditative practice and lasts about 10 minutes, and then you can go on with the rest of your day. Well, no substances other than incense and things like that, but you know what I mean. Dan Herm says, are there any benefits to meditating on the astral? Yeah, give it a shot, see how it goes. Northern Lights. This is the reality shifting. Children on TikTok were claiming to enter entire new realities through sleep using repetitive willing, often traveling to an alternate dimensions where they're dating Draco Malfoy, or a spirit pretending to be Draco Malfoy. Well, it sounds like they're doing dream incubation or lucid dreaming. It sounds like they're doing lucid dreaming practice and taking it too seriously. So that's my take on it. Yeah, Was Up 809 says, no offense to anyone, obviously. I think people mentioning drugs for magic just honestly want an excuse to do drugs. LMAO. Yeah. You cannot ever, as a magician, if you want to be a magician, you cannot ever be in a position where you submit your will to something else. And that includes, that's why hypnosis was banned in the Golden Dawn. You could not be hypnotized. And it includes drugs. Because I don't care, okay, so there's drugs and drugs, right? Mostly we're talking about psychedelics. When it comes to hard drugs like heroin, I don't care how smart and shiny and brilliant you are. If you become addicted to heroin, you will be a slave of that demon. It doesn't matter who you are, right? So obviously psychedelics are a different story, but they can also be certainly destabilizing over a long period of time. Paul says, yeah, so avoid magic groups where they're just caning shit tons of drugs. Paul says, I heard somewhere that Kelly was on some type of psychedelic when he started scrying for D and then lost his mind because it wasn't sustainable. You probably heard that from me, since I've talked about that in streams and put it in my book. Yeah. Numerato says, psychedelics are a water hose with no holder of the hose, but a fun primer. It can be for some people, but bad trips are real, and psychedelics are definitely not for some people. So I think that blanket recommending them to the population, as people like Timothy Leary have, or others, is deeply irresponsible. Deeply. Alex says, that's funny because that's exactly what my acid trips told me. It's just a preview. So even acid agrees with me about acid. That's exactly what my acid trips told me. It's just a preview to your untapped potential. Now it's time to integrate it, and that's the hard part nobody wants to do. Yeah, Terrence McKenna had a really good phrase about this, which is, when you get the message, hang up the phone. And people who take psychedelics definitely will get this. Well, they'll be getting the same message over and over again about what they need to do in their life, and they just continue to take drugs. Hang up the phone and do the actual thing they're telling you to do, right? You need to integrate it into your life. Okay. Jet says, good results with Kava and Blue Lotus. So again, all these things are out there. There's now tons of stuff available in legally even. It's all shortcuts. You need to develop the ability dead sober. And I will say this, when you actually have the techniques, you don't need any of that stuff. Kava, Blue Lotus. It's like, yeah, I've taken tons of those too, right? It's interesting, whatever. All those do is relax you, right? But if you have the techniques, then you don't need any of that. And of course, you can learn the techniques at, wait for it, yes, the Adept Initiative 2, starting now. Vince says, don't want to be foolish. Not at all, unless you mean the tarot card. But can I join the second course if I didn't take your first one? Okay, great question, Vince. It's not a foolish question at all. The prerequisites for Adept Initiative 2 are that you have taken Adept 1 or are at a comparable level of skill. And here's my you must be this high to ride bar is if you can comfortably and consistently, like every day, meditate for half an hour, and you can do an LBRP, ideally if you have it memorized, you can take Adept 2. If not, if you're not comfortable with any of that, take Adept 1. It's all available for you. Adept 1 is done. You can take the whole thing now. The whole damn thing is uploaded. It's awesome. The new version. It's incredible. It's really, really well done. It's the same course as the old one, but it's really streamlined and straight to the point. So if you feel that you have that level of experience, hop in. If you don't, Adept 1 is there, and Adept 2 will be ready when you are. Northern Light says, what do you say about the people who say that there are realities that can only be entered through drugs? Do you think that this is false or that these places aren't worth visiting? That's kind of a vague question. I will say that for the purpose of magic, for the purpose of the important thing for magic is not that you can go to XYZ reality. The important thing for magic is that you can direct your mind to have a specific experience, and you have that experience and nothing but that experience with no bleed, and then you come back and reintegrate. The important thing is not what happens or what you get, it's that you can do the thing and that you have control over that. That's what's important, and drugs will not give you that. A Bannister, thank you for the super chat. I never knew about the hypnosis ban in the HOGD. What other things did they ban? Loving your work as always, Jason. Well, that's the one that they said that you actually had to take an oath on that you would never submit yourself to hypnosis, to being hypnotized by somebody else. I think there were other things as well, but I'm blanking on it right now. Neo Canada says, thank you so much. I think you just gave me my answer. I felt like I've been called by mushrooms for the past few months, but I've been resisting it because I'm scared to go again. Okay, well, try out astral stuff. You might be surprised how easy it actually is. A lot cheaper than buying drugs too. Shit, think about. By the way, let me make a real basic suggestion to you. Think about how much people who are into psychedelics, think about how expensive you are and how much you spend on them. And what if you had a technique that, or drug, any type of drug, what if you had a technique that could get you as high? I'm dead serious about this, by the way. This is not, it is a marketing pitch, but I'm completely serious about this. What if you had a technique that if you pushed it to the limit could get you higher than heroin? Just naturally in your brain by lighting it off, those centers off in your brain. Guess what? That exists. It's called pranayama. What if you had it and it's free forever and it's good for you and it only improves the quality of your brain? What if you had a technique that could make you trip and see visions, but specific ones that are actually helpful, and it was free and you didn't need anything for it? That's called astral travel. And both of these things, if you learn them, will last you your entire life and you will never have to buy drugs again. And wait for it, you will learn all of these at the Adept Initiative. And does it cost money? Yeah, it does cost money because it's a huge course. It takes a ton of money to put on. It's my job. I spend months and months and months. I spend my entire life on making these courses, right? So yeah, it is expensive, right? Nothing worthwhile is free. Even these techniques, they require your effort, right? They're not just given to you. You still have to put the effort into them. So, but think about the cost compared to how much you're likely to spend on drugs for the rest of your life. And then really, really think about what a great investment that is. Man, you could save yourself tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run, depending on how big of a fiend you are. Okay. Word to the wise. Quixotic Dragon says, so to you, astral projection is just using your imagination? No. It's more complex than that, but you'll have to take the course to find out. Jennifer says, so this is a very common question as well. No matter how hard I try, every single time I try to meditate, I'm interrupted by my son, husband, and so on. At night when it's quiet, I just fall asleep. Any suggestions? Yeah, a lot of people are in that situation. You're just going to have to figure out either wake up early, or if you have some space you can go to maybe outside, for just a half hour or something, or if there's some space you can get for yourself, hell, even up the bathroom can work, right? So you'll just have to figure that out. But almost nobody has an ideal. Like here's the thing: nobody has an ideal setup for magic, right? Unless you're like Lord Summerisle from The Wicker Man, right? Nobody has a perfect setup for magic. Even the stuff that Crowley talks about in his books, like these huge temple setups, he didn't have those, right? However, so everyone has to make do with what they have. But on the astral, you can build the temple so that you have everything. All right. Bob Wilson said acid was great, and okay, well, never trust a hippie. Yeah, we got a recommendation for opium. No. No. Somebody's talking about opium as a times of emergency to have on nice hand as plant medicine. No. We already have an opioid crisis in this country. SB wants Bailey J back on the podcast. Let's see. Lon Milo says, eat too much quiche and you'll astral. I don't remember that one. I'm talking about lawn stories, Abramelin oil. Yeah, Deep Space Debrief says auto-hypnosis is not the same as hypnosis by another. So specific, and this isn't all magic, it's just the Golden Dawn. They said you were not supposed to be hypnotized by somebody else, but you can certainly hypnotize yourself. Because now you have it under control. What's up? God is gay. Working at McDonald's right now on your lunch break. Blessed be. Wonderful to see you here. Thank you for being here. Paul said, I used to be addicted to meth, but now I get higher from my magic practice than I ever did from speed. Well, there you go, because meth gets you, so I heard, real high. So there you go. That's independently corroborated. It's not just me saying it. Okay, so there Paul is backing up what I'm saying. And then Bryce says, yoga and Qigong can also get you very high. More than ayahuasca in some cases, field tested. That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. And it's free forever. So, well, this is wonderful. KS Moon says, I was also a meth addict, and for sure I got much higher calling in the Aether. So doing Enochian was better than meth. Yeah. So now we've got 3-4 people independently corroborating this, that magic and yoga will get you higher than substances. Pretty awesome deal. Pretty awesome deal. Paul Ferguson agrees with that, the Enochian. Oren says, to me, it was the most horrific and interesting experience, but nevertheless, Vipassana taken seriously is a fantastic method. Absolutely. Vipassana is awesome. Specifically a 10-day Vipassana retreat. I highly recommend that, but only for advanced people. And by advanced, I mean you've been meditating like 10 years. Don't go into that cold with no meditation experience. You're going to have a bad time because you're not going to be able to meditate for 10 days straight if you don't even know how to do it, right? But if you practice Liber E, particularly if you can hold asana, if you practice the methods in Adept, yeah, go find a Vipassana retreat. That's a truly transformative experience. Totally agree. Quixotic Dragon, why are all these Indian yogis still getting blasted on drugs? Well, look. When it comes to India, you got to remember that the system over there is a lot different. They have the caste system, they have the sadhu system, and it's expected that you can just drop out of society and be a yogi, and the whole society will support you. It doesn't work quite as well as it used to back in the day, but it's a different social contract there. We don't have that here. You are not, unless you want to be homeless for the rest of your life, and just wander around doing drugs. I suppose you can do that, but I don't recommend it. But like I said at the beginning of my talk on drugs, if I said that yogis, shamans, magicians haven't used substances since the dawn of history, I would be lying. They do. They do. All I'm saying is it isn't a primary practice, and it shouldn't be a crutch, and it shouldn't be something that you allow to get control over you, and you don't need them. So I can't speak to what people are doing in India, although I've certainly witnessed it and done it myself over there. Yeah, and this also, weed grows like in huge fields there. Like you can have these things called bong lassis, which is like a milkshake made out of the hemp there that will get, it's like you're gonna like basically, and by the way, if you ever go to India, be careful because the sadhus and the yogis love to do this with Westerners. They will get you high out of your gourd, like the type of high where like you sleep for 3 days and then they'll rob you. So don't, yeah, that's one of the reasons why they recommend it, so they can rob Westerners. Nicholas says, is there any reason why modern magic practices are still infused with Abrahamic characters and sounds? Is there value in pursuing a more original Hermetic version? Well, the original Hermetic version is Abrahamic. I don't see, unless you may want to do some Egyptian cosplay thing. The reason there's Abrahamic characters and sounds is because we're an Abrahamic culture. Judaism and Christianity are part of our spiritual heritage, whether you personally like it or not. And this is something that people often struggle with in the early days of magic, particularly if they come from a fundamentalist background, right? But of course, engaging with these concepts of your own volition and not because it's being forced on you by some youth pastor or something like that is a whole different story. But the question is kind of like asking, why are there Hindu gods in yoga? It's because that's the culture it came out of. And it relies on those symbols because the people that are being taught grew up with those symbols. They're resonant with them. Chaos says, congrats to you too, Paul. That's not necessarily an easy thing to quit. Yeah, and for sure. It can be hard to find others who are truly successful at it. So congratulations to both of you. I have lost a lot of friends to methamphetamine, and brilliant people, brilliant magicians. And it's horrible. It's horrible. You don't need me to, I'm not going to get on a moral high horse or anything. I'm just going to tell you my experience. A lot of my friends have died because of meth and heroin. Most of the magicians I knew in the 90s are dead. Not all of them, but quite a few of them, people that I really loved and that were important to me, are now dead because of methamphetamine and heroin. So, fuck around, find out. That's another way. Instead of do what thou wilt, it should be the whole of the law. It should just be fuck around, find out. Thoughts on yoga meditation? Yes, all day, every day. Have I ever seen the Book of the Heavenly Cow? I have not. Oh, I'm kind of skipping around here. Oren says, yeah, 10-day meditation. Yeah, Vipassana is awesome. But it's very, very... The thing about Vipassana is you can't escape yourself. Doing Vipassana is like... I did it in the desert in Joshua Tree, and it was like being in a Thai prison camp or Hellraiser or something, because you can no longer escape yourself, right? Which is what almost everything we do is to do that. It's a profound experience, but it's very hard. And a lot of people leave partway through it because they can't take it. Yeah, somebody recently said the middle pillar was better than smoking cigarettes. Yeah. California Vipassana Center. So as far as I know, Vipassana is free everywhere. It's donation, but it's donation basis. But you usually have to book way in advance because they don't want people going there to detox from drugs or escape the law. Zach, just joined, late to the discussion. Did you go over methods for astral projection? I need some help in that department. I've had some OBEs and I feel like I get close to AP. So one thing to point out is astral projection and out-of-body experience are not the same thing. An out-of-body experience is when your etheric body is ejected. The etheric is not the same as the astral. And actually literally leaving your body, for instance, which does happen to people in near-death experiences, in car crashes. It can sometimes happen in cases of severe abuse in childhood or adulthood. That is a survival mechanism, and it's not healthy, and it's not something to cultivate. Astral projection is something completely different, and astral projection you can learn every single bit about at adept.magic.me. Yes, Adept Initiative 2, today's the day. Sign up. Wow, okay, so Elements, we have 3 people who have kicked methamphetamine and are into magic. That's wonderful. Element 105 says, can confirm getting high of own supply, 5 years, no meth. Congratulations. Congratulations. That's a real achievement. That's a real achievement. I think people who haven't struggled with addiction don't understand how big of an achievement that can be. That's wonderful. Dylan says, experience some kind of high doing Tritaka exercises. Is that like a Buddhist thing? I don't know what that is. It sounds familiar. Doesn't seem a bold claim to me anymore. Yeah. Paul says, congrats to all my fellow former addicts, and congrats from me as well. Meat Wolf says, I bought Jason's 3 biggest courses and it was a big investment, but think what meaningless and temporary things we all spend money on. Yeah, me too. PlayStation Store. Streamlined and concise instruction is so valuable if you apply it. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Word up. Bryce says, Jason, have you been exploring Germanic magic, runes, etc.? Yeah, I've done work with the runes. Absolutely. My ancestors were, my ancestors were rune casting snake worshippers. So yeah, I have. I think they're cool. They're pretty culturally specific, but SB says, I loved your pod with Whitley Strieber. What do you think of the overlap between UFO experiences and magic? Yeah, that was super cool. It was cool to talk to Whitley Strieber. The crazy thing is, I read his book, The Supernatural, with Jeffrey Kripal. And when you read about his actual abduction experiences, they don't sound like the movie Communion or The Greys. They sound much more like European fairy tales. And they're almost identical down to knocking, arms getting broken, blue furry things with Dean Kelly's experiences. And that was wild to me. And I told him that, and he'd never heard of that. That gave me some chills. Soup says, I found a weed high is vastly different, just doing to procrastinate versus smoking after, and with meditation, both can be seen as beautiful without weed. Yeah. Well, I will say, look, marijuana is largely legal now, depending on where you are. I think that responsible cannabis use is not an issue. And when people are talking about yogis getting high, they're talking about cannabis, right? And cannabis was clearly if you look at it, was clearly part of the yogas and tantras. I will again say you don't want to rely on it, but I don't think it's going to hurt you. It will stop you from dreaming, though, which can be very, very tricky if you're trying to do those practices. But everything in moderation. Hell, it beats drinking for sure. Drinking will just disintegrate your brain. You should not be drinking and doing magic. It's pickling your brain. Yeah, Jonathan Shadow says Ming. So if you're gonna choose between weed and alcohol, weed every time. But I would find ways to vaporize it so that you don't, because you can still smoke weed. It's not tobacco, but you're still inhaling smoke, so you can still get emphysema that way. Jonathan Shadow, Mingyur Rinpoche's approach. You can meditate anytime, anywhere, on anything. Absolutely. A. Bannister says, I quit drinking, started the year. Congratulations. Nicotine 2 weeks ago. Congrats. Good job. Excellent work. Dreams have become very trippy. Yeah, I bet. SB, sobriety is king. Null, Fafo93. Yeah, I love that. Fuck around and find out shall be the whole of the law. Because that's the thing that nobody says. It's not do what thou wilt and you can get away with anything you want to do. First of all, it's do what you were put here to do is what that meant. Do your true will. But that doesn't mean you're free from the consequences of it. So I think fuck around, find out is a good way to put it. A. Bannister says, yeah, especially after a hard day's work. Yeah. So I don't know what it is state to state, but at least in Texas, THCA is legal, which is like one molecule off from THC, and then it turns to THC when it's combusted. You can get weed sodas here that are great, so, if you're going to pick something, that's what I would do. But that's not a recommendation. Meat Wolf says, it takes a ton of time, energy, and money to create courses and collect the skills and knowledge to make them good. Plus, Jason gives so much away for free. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is my life's work. I've spent my entire life and every single resource that I've had learning this and building the capacity to do this. This is my entire life. My entire life has gone into this, right? I don't have a side job, thankfully. This is what I've dedicated my life to, this and writing. So, yeah, it takes a lot of work. Soup says, I've tried Adderall recreationally, and I can best describe it as a feeling of willpower, which can, again, be discovered without drugs. Ideally, yeah. All right. I'm going to kind of skip through some of these. Higgins, I'm a beginner taking meditation seriously. I've got ADHD and take Adderall for it. Okay. Struggling to maintain focus and lose flow state immediately. I know I should read into it, but I figured I'd ask. So when do you lose flow state? I'm not clear about that based off what you said. When you take Adderall, you lose flow state? Zach, okay, Zach, this is a great question. Zach says, what does astral projection feel like then, or how is it different from OBE? OBE felt very real, for instance. Yeah, it is. Is AP not as real? No, it's also real, but the astral projection is engaging with the world of the imagination as if it were a real virtual space. And as far as public consumption goes, I think that's probably what I'm going to say in a public call, right? And so when you're daydreaming, okay, let me put it this way, okay? Your etheric body is the energy body. It's all that Alex Gray shit, right? And it should not leave your body. That's the body that Tai Chi and acupuncture and Qigong and yoga and all that work on. Okay, that's your etheric or subtle body, whatever you want to call it, the energy body. You know, that's what traditional Chinese medicine works on, all that stuff. That's supposed to stay in your body. The astral body is so what's your astral body? So, okay, when you're dreaming and you have a sense of being in the dream and having a body, that's your astral body. Also, when you're daydreaming and imagining being on a beach in Tahiti, but you have a sense of having a body, that's your astral body. So I hope that clears it up. How to cultivate will if you lack it. Can you will a will? Well, do magical practices. Do meditative practices. Asana, pranayama, dharana. I'd love to see you do a deep dive on the secret commonwealth. I don't know what that is. Heavenly Cow is an Egyptian funerary text about the fall. I found it helpful. Okay, that sounds cool. Alan Watts. Don't trust hippies. Alan Watts. Oh, man. Meditation is not self-improvement. Do not enter into it under any such delusions. There is no one to be improved. Meditation is a form of enjoyment. No, it's not a form of enjoyment. Jesus Christ. Alan Watts. Hello, and what are you thinking about Kratom? Okay. Kratom is a godsend for people coming off of heroin addiction, but can also work the other way. And we already have an opioid crisis in this country. So when in doubt, don't. Oh, you're just withdrawing. Okay, well, go easy on yourself. Luckily, you can't overdose on Kratom, but yeah, withdrawing off Kratom is not fun. Slim Jim, I don't miss weed or booze. If I have either, it's so rare, and I always could have just not and been fine. Paul Ferguson says, I think it was pedophile Hine. Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry. I think it was Phil Hine that recommended to drink a little booze whenever shit gets too weird from doing spirit work. Man, fuck Phil Hine. That guy's an asshole. Yeah, don't listen to anything he says. Soup, legal weed, Delta 8, etc. is fine, but it's not weed. Eventually laws will catch up with culture. Higgins, okay. Deep Space Debrief says, cut out the hard stuff, kick the booze, smoke some good if you've got to. Delta 8 is even better, not quite as potent, doesn't affect cognition as much as Delta 9. Yeah, I'm not that much of a weed geek, but I probably should be. Deep Space says, a lot of us grew up thinking it was cool or no big deal, but drugs are absolutely a hindrance on the magical path if not used in an appropriate manner. Yeah, because, I mean, you could be tripping the light fantastic on a substance, and then the substance, suddenly you can't do it anymore because it's having a health effect on you. Now you can't do it without the substance. Now you're back to ground zero. Soup, Higgins, I hear that. The best response to all psychological phenomena I've heard is to get curious. For example, who's feeling frustrated? What does that feel like in my body? Look at it with full curiosity. Yeah, that would be more like a mindfulness practice. Alex says, I love your don't trust a hippie line in this stream. LMAO, good advice I probably needed 5 years ago. Yeah. The classic line with hippies. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine. Yeah. Okay, check this out. Here's another interesting on the Astral, The Scientist by John Lilly. This is definitely a good... I don't know if I can find the section, though, so... But yeah, this is a... So, I'm not sure I can find the exact spot in here, but interestingly enough, John Lilly's the guy that invented the sensory deprivation tank. He recommended astral projecting as just a single point of consciousness, which I think is interesting. All right. Okay, well, so much for the astral. I would like to at least momentarily move on to talking about what's happening in Syria for a complete left turn. So if you don't want to hear about hardcore terror, the hardcore world events, this might not be the stream for you, but I think this stuff is interesting to talk about. So right now, religious minorities are being massacred in Syria. And I am not an expert on this. I don't know all the details. But it's not being reported widely. And if other people here know details that I don't, I would love to hear what people have to say about it. But I just wanted to show one, and this is kind of rough, but I wanted to at least show you what's going on because I feel that I should. Oh, there's Charlie. Hold on one second. Let me find. All right. So I probably can't. I can't show. I'm going to show you you can go look at this article and look at the video. It's a little too rough to show on YouTube because it's a video of terrorists, or excuse me, individuals murdering people. So I'm not going to play the actual video, but I will read the article and you can go check it out. Okay. Here we go. All right, so Daily Mail, which is, I believe, in the UK, and the headline is Horror of the Syrian Massacres. Video footage shows brutal executions and mutilations carried out by fighters as nation's new Islamist rulers wipe out hundreds of Assad loyalists. Thank you, A. Bannister. Says, thank you, Jason. I really need to hear all of this. Staying sober as a practicing magician is now a strong goal. Thank you again. You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. And thank you for the lovely super chat. So, Murica, you're damn right, Murica. All right. Oh, Frauder RC is gifting more memberships. Both amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. All right. So we're now going into my counter jihad identity. So the cowboy hat goes on. I'm giving you plenty of time. I'm warning you in advance before it happens. So if you stay on the stream, it's a fuck around, find out situation. Okay. Why am I talking about this? Particularly right after talking about astral travel. What on earth is the connection between those two things? So I said this on another video. SB says, Islam challenge. Jane says the situation is more nuanced and complicated regarding Israel. Not really. SB says Islam's challenge to subjugate and treat religious minorities like crap, difficulty, impossible. Yeah, exactly. So why am I talking about this right after talking about astral travel? So how do I put it? My work without sounding too pretentious. Yeah, I mean Syria. Without sounding too pretentious, my work in the world works on two axes. One is, God damn. Yeah. Like a rhinestone cowboy. My work happens on two axes, which broadly correspond to the mission of the AA and the OTO. So, my primary role is as a spiritual teacher, which is to teach a relatively small number of students, both paid and for the public, right? Because I have paid courses, and then I do tons of stuff free for the public, right? I put tons and tons and tons of information out on a weekly, sometimes daily basis, right? And that is aimed at, in a real, practical, non-woo way, in a real world way for people who live in the real world, like you and I, to learn some of these techniques and improve and to assess the great work. Because thankfully, no matter what else you think about the world, we now live in a time, for the first time in history, where large numbers of people have free time. And that will only accelerate with AI if you harness it correctly. And that means that unlike any other time in history before, the great work is open to more or less to a lot of people. A lot of people. So I'm here to give you the information on how to do it. It's still up to you to do it. It's a tremendous amount of work. No one can do it for you. But I'm here to give out good information because there's a lot of bad information. That's the vertical axis of my work, the work of teaching the methods of ascent, and which are really the methods of becoming more human, right? Like I always say, like I'm not into spirituality. What am I, trying to become Casper the fucking friendly ghost? No, I'm interested in being more human. Perhaps we could call it humanity. That gets a little pretentious, but yeah. So that's the vertical axis of my work. The horizontal axis of my work is doing what I can as one person to make sure that that situation continues, meaning that we still have religious and physical freedom. You can't meditate if you're living in a despotic regime, right? Like in the 20th century, for instance. Under Mao, under Stalin, under Hitler, you couldn't practice these things. Hitler put OTO people in, like Karl Germer, the head of the OTO, in concentration camps. He even put in rune practitioners in concentration camps, right? Despots and authoritarians don't want any other object of worship outside of themselves. So it doesn't matter if you're a Hermetic magician or a Vajrayana Buddhist or a Hare Krishna or a Vedantist or a Christian or an esoteric Christian or a Kabbalist or just a practicing Orthodox Jew. In a lot of regimes in the world, particularly this one right here, you can't do any of that. And a world in which there is no physical freedom is a world in which there is no spiritual freedom. And those are things that are worth fighting and dying for. They are. So I see there's a lot of threats on the horizon right now. America's basically my mandate, but in the world. And two of the biggest ones are the spread of Islam and Marxism. Marxism by any other name, since it shapeshifts into a billion different forms. And Nazism, which is now back. These things are, just like the run-up to World War II. World War II was the fight between capitalism/democracy, communism/Marxism, Marxist-Leninism, and National Socialism, Nazism/fascism. And fascism was destroyed, and then the Cold War was the fight between the remaining two. And then that's not my middle finger. And then the last one that remained was capitalism/democracy, but that was only a brief. And you know what? I don't have any problem with capitalism and democracy, because the thing about capitalism, who cares? The thing about capitalism is, under capitalism will at least sell you spirituality. As long as you're paying your taxes, capitalist democratic societies do not care what you do. As long as you're a tax-paying, law-abiding citizen, you're fine. So I think that it is ideal for our purposes. The others are definitely not. Absolutely not. And we also don't want to live under theocracy. So now we're in a position where Marxism has come back, and fascism and Nazism have come back. They're not quite as frightening as they were before, but things change very quickly, and the internet makes everything up for grabs. And I think that America is in many ways the last stand of freedom, which is why I now live in Texas. But now we also have Islam to deal with, which is a force which is potentially larger than all three put together. So the classic role of the Western esoteric tradition has been also to resist theocracy, and primarily that's meant the Catholic Church. It's meant Christian fundamentalism and so forth, control of the intellectual climate of Europe and that type of thing. Well, now we got a much bigger enemy. Much, much, much bigger. That's how these things connect. Okay, so hopefully that explains it. So let's take a look at this. Again, if people know more about this situation than me, please chime in on the chat because I'm still getting up to speed with it. Horror of the Syrian massacres. Video footage shows brutal executions and mutilations carried out by fighters as nation's new Islamist rulers wipe out hundreds of Assad loyalists. Militants from Syria's ruling Islamist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, which is the group that overthrew Assad, engaged in a ruthless killing spree this weekend, taking delight in beating, torturing, and executing helpless civilians in Alawite majority areas along the nation's west coast. More than 1,000 people have reportedly been slaughtered, the majority of whom were civilians, as HTS militants filmed themselves subjecting unarmed citizens in Alawite and Christian communities to extreme violence. Some were forced to crawl beside the bloody corpses of their neighbors as they were battered by branches and sticks. Others were simply dragged out of their homes and shot at point-blank range with assault rifles as the Islamists watched on, laughing as the bullets tore through their bodies. The HTS government in Damascus claimed the attacks on Syria's west coast around Latakia were launched to defeat pro-Assad loyalist groups that had attacked security checkpoints on March 6th. But a mountain of evidence, most of it provided by HTS militants themselves, now shows that the bulk of the violence was meted out against unarmed and non-resistant civilians. In several cases, the militants filmed themselves speaking and waving to the camera, their faces clearly visible. When HTS seized power in Syria with a lightning coup that deposed former President Bashar al-Assad in December, leader Ahmed al-Sharaa affirmed that Syria's diverse religious and ethnic minorities would be safe from persecution and violence. Yes, they took the challenge that was mentioned in the chat, and they failed. It was a bold claim from a man whose group came into existence as the Syrian branch of al-Qaeda and ruled Syria's northwestern province of Idlib according to strict Sharia law, violently suppressing any dissent. Though many world leaders, including from Western democratic states, rejoiced in the ousting of Assad and softened their stance on HTS, regional players, including Syria's Kurdish-led autonomous region of Rojava, warned that Sharaa and HTS were wolves in sheep's clothing. Yeah, there's a slightly censored picture. HTS militants drag an Alawite man out of his home, beat him with their rifles, and proceed to execute him as he lies on the ground. Yep, there they go. The atrocities were published to social media by the HTS militants themselves. Yeah, and yet people will still deny them. It's like, that didn't happen. They literally live streamed it. An HTS commander beat civilians he forced to crawl along a dirt road. Man. Militants from Syria's ruling Islamic group HTS engaged in a ruthless killing spree. There they go. Members of Syrian security forces stand next to a bloodied body. There's the lads at the Mediterranean Sea coast. HTS, a Sunni Islamist group, was first formed in 2012 under the name Jabhat al-Nusra and was the Syrian wing of the Islamic State of Iraq, then a branch of al-Qaeda. In 2017, the group underwent a rebrand, cutting ties with al-Qaeda and changing its name to HTS. These are all Muslim Brotherhood sprouts, by the way. They all come from the same place, which for some reason England allows to stay in their country. Since seizing, in 2017, the group underwent a rebrand, cutting ties with al-Qaeda and changing its name to HTS, as leader Ahmed al-Sharaa sought to moderate his stance to gain legitimacy. Since seizing power in December, HTS has ruled from Damascus, consolidating their hold over most of western and parts of central Syria. But huge swathes of the country, swathes, however you pronounce that, remain out of their control. Almost all the land northeast of the Euphrates River that cuts through the heart of Syria is part of Rojava, officially the Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, AANES, an autonomous region home to Syria's Kurdish population. Parts of the north and northwest are controlled primarily by Syrian National Army, SNA, a Turkish-backed militia that is waging war against Rojava. Across Syria's east and in its vast deserts, ISIS cells remain active, and areas south of Damascus are home to the nation's Druze population. Meanwhile, on the west coast, pro-Assad groups are still trying to cling to power in Alawite majority communities around Latakia, Banias, Jabla, and Tardis. The Alawites, and again, if I'm mispronouncing things, you're welcome to correct me. The Alawite sect is an offshoot of Shia Islam, and it once formed the core constituency of Assad's government in the Sunni-majority country. One militant group, the Coastal Shield Brigade, is formed from remnants of Assad's web of military and intelligence branches who fled their posts as HTS swept to power last year before consolidating their strength in Latakia. They have vowed to strike back at HTS and have refused to lay down their arms, fearing brutal reprisals should they surrender. But these militias are now encircled by Syria's new government forces, their backs against the Mediterranean Sea. As Alawite militias clash with HTS fighters last week, other members of HTS mercilessly rampaged through Alawite territories, conducting summary executions, maiming, and tormenting civilian populations. Horrific footage appeared to show civilians being shot and burned to death as pictures of mass graves circulated on social media. All right, let's play a little bit of the video, and if it gets too much, I will stop it. But let's see here. Viewer discretion advised here. We now have 666 views as of this moment. There's HTS. Oh, William. Wonder who enraged these people with Desert Storm in Iraq. Oh, give me a fucking break. Get out of here with that shit. Oh, it's all America's fault. Give me a fucking break. Okay, let's see. Where were we? Oh yeah, because it was American intervention that it's caused Islamic expansion all over the world since the first millennia. Okay. Okay there, buddy. All right. But the massacre of civilians is likely to damage HTS leader Shira's efforts to position the former jihadist group as a legitimate ruling authority and a willing partner in the eyes of the international community. Samir Haidar, 67, said two of his brothers and his nephew were killed by armed groups that entered people's homes in the town of Banias, around 25 kilometers south of Latakia. Though an Alawite himself, Haidar belonged to the leftist opposition under Assad's rule and was imprisoned for more than a decade. He said he began hearing explosions and gunfire on Friday morning with the arrival of forces deployed to the city, adding that they entered the building and killed my only neighbor. He managed to escape with his wife and two children to a Sunni neighborhood, but said, if I had been 5 minutes late, I would have been killed. All right, here's the interim president who heads HTS and toppled Assad. Loyal Syrian loyalists. This guy shooting in the air with a LMG at a funeral. Got some technicals. Checkpoints. Security forces have set up checkpoints surrounded by items stolen from homes during the upheaval. It's just chaos there. Rocket fired as authorities extended the curfew. Yeah. Since coming to power, Shira has lobbied the United States and Europe to lift sanctions to pave the way for economic recovery, to pull millions of Syrians out of poverty, and make the country viable again. But Washington and Europe are concerned that lifting sanctions before Syria transitions into an inclusive political system could pave the way for another chapter of autocratic rule. Shira appealed to Syrians and the international community in an address over the weekend, calling for accountability for anyone who harms civilians and for national unity and civil peace to be preserved. God willing, we will be able to live together in this country, he said, adding that the new authorities would not allow any foreign powers or domestic parties to drag Syria into chaos or civil war. He blamed remnants of the former Assad government and unspecified foreign parties supporting them for the outbreak of violence, and also declared he had formed a committee composed mostly of judges to investigate the violence. But Shira declined to acknowledge the mounting body of evidence, showing his own fighters massacring civilians. All right, just to skip ahead a little bit, because this is getting a little too detailed. Marco Rubio urged Syrian authorities to hold the perpetrators of these massacres accountable, adding that Washington stands with Syria's religious and ethnic minorities, including its Christian, Druze, Alawite, and Kurdish communities. Okay, so let me find what I was going to show you. Okay, so now here's just a video from someone on the ground right there telling you exactly what's happening. All right, so let me make this full screen, and hopefully you can hear this. I believe you can. Here you go. So here's somebody who's on the ground.
Covering my face now because I don't want anyone to see my face, because if they see me they will kill me. I'm from Syria. I live now in the city of Latakia. Please, please, please. The media is not showing you anything. The terrorists are killing everyone, children, women, teenagers, old people, just killing. There is more than 100 body in my there is more than 100 body in my village now. Even in the city they are just taking the children and the women and kill them. I don't know what to do with my mom and my two sisters. Please, you gotta help us. Nobody is talking anything about it. Not the social media or the TV channels. They are all hiding the truth. They are saying that they are killing the resistance, but this is end up 2 days ago. Please, you gotta help us. They have been killing people since 2 days until now. Hundred of bodies are thrown in the street, in the villages, and in the city of Syria. We are not allowed to go out of the house. They just come to the houses, take the people, kill them outside of the house, and take all the phones so nobody record or do anything. Please, you gotta help us. I have two I have two sisters. I don't know what to do with them. If it's okay for me if I die, but not for my two sisters or my mom. One of them is a teenager. Please, you gotta help us. Nobody's talking anything about it. Human rights, United Nations, anyone, America, anyone, just please help us. You need to do, you need, you need to do something about it. The social media is not showing anything. Most of my relative people are dead in my village. There is bodies in the street. We are afraid for the little kids. There is nobody left. Like we are being killed. All of us, all the Alawite and the Christian. For God's sake, if you believe in humanity, if you believe in any religion that you want, just please, you need to save us. You need to do something about this. The TV is not showing anything, not Al Jazeera, not any TV channel. They are all covering what's happening now. Until this moment, there is people coming from another cities from Syria, like Idlib and Hama and Homs. They are coming just to kill people. They are still coming until now and killing people randomly. Not women or children or anything. They kill everybody. They are demons. They are not human beings. And nobody is talking anything about it. I don't know what will happen to me in the next hour. Or please, human rights, United Nations, anyone who can hear me, just please save us. You need to do something quickly. We are running out of time. There is no more Christian or Alawite to kill anymore. You need to save what the rest of us.
All right. So pretty rough. But the only places I've seen talking about this at all are Christian and Jewish social media, right? Because Christians are being massacred over there. And not just them, as this guy says, Alawites, basically any religious Druze, any religious minority. And yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Brandon on this one, where he says, I'm from England. The more we support them and give unrequited love, the worse our country has gotten. So don't give me that, please. Unfortunately, yeah. It's kind of like saying, what if we teach the Nazis to love? Well, guess what? You can do that, but only after you defeat them militarily. Yes, there was denazification, and yes, Germany was resurrected, but only after it was reduced to rubble. And sometimes that's just how it has to go. Sometimes that's just how it has to go. In situations like this, in the early 90s, on the other foot, there was a genocide in Serbia. It was just all over the place. But Muslims are being genocided by nationalist forces, and I think there was it was just a free-for-all. Joe Sacco did a really, really disturbing very disturbing graphic novel about it called Safe Area Gorejda. The only thing that stopped that genocide was Clinton bombing the area. It was military intervention. So yeah, William saying, well, Iraqi freedom didn't help. American intervention in the Middle East didn't help. Yeah, we should have finished the job. And I was an anti-war protester throughout the early 2000s. Unfortunately, what happened is America got over there and then got greedy and decided to use it not just for oil, but to launder money and all this other, and heroin, to collect heroin from the poppy fields and God knows what else. But we didn't do 9/11. And we responded appropriately, at least at first. Going into Iraq was too much, I give you that, but we did not create this problem. And our wishy-washiness around it, not just America, but also England, all the West wishy-washiness around this, like, oh, maybe, maybe not. No. There's only one response to this, and that's no, by any means necessary. It's not an incitement to anything. I'm talking about geopolitics, okay? I'm not talking about at the individual level. But this is literally, I haven't seen the media talking about this at all. And I would like to know more about it. And I would also like to know about how to bring more attention to it. And maybe there's ways to help. I don't know, because I don't know how you can't be affected by that video or the video of civilians being beaten. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say about that. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And hey, for shits and giggles. Yeah, Meatwolf says, dude, this is heartbreaking. Any other time in history without the internet, we would never hear his voice. Yeah. So what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? And I haven't done this for a while. I usually do this on Sunday, but I've missed this the last 2 streams. So we're going to do the weekly roundup of this week in the religion of peace. So, number 1, massacre in Syria as Islamists take power. 6 days ago, on the 12th, in Pakistan, Majid Brigade suicide bombers hijack a train and kill 31 passengers. Somalia, March 11th, 10 civilians are left dead after al-Shabaab loyalists detonate a car bomb outside a hotel. March 8th, Democratic Republic of the Congo, a woman burned alive is among 4 non-Muslims slaughtered by the ADF. That's a Muslim militia. March 8th, DRC, Democratic Republic of the Congo, 3 Islamic militants hack and shoot 9 villagers to death. Same day in excuse me, hiccups. Same day in India, 3 cousins are murdered and flung into a river by Muslim extremists. And then on the 4th, in Pakistan, gunmen follow 2 suicide bombers into a military base, slaughtering at least 13 civilians and 5 soldiers. So you tell me, William, how is America responsible for this in Pakistan, in India, in Central Africa, in Somalia, in Syria? You know how much any of that has to do with America? This right here, which, by the way, is the Muslim world's only contribution to world knowledge. Maybe I should just leave it with that. All right, everyone. It's been real. And thank you for those who hung in for that last bit. I only lost a 1/5 or so of the viewers. All right, I'll be back at you soon. Remember, today's the day, adept.magic.me. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everyone you do not know about this channel, and definitely sign up for Adept Initiative 2 to learn about traversing and mastering the astral plane. Today is the day. All right, everyone. Gonna hit you with an ad and then I'm out. Lots of love. See you next time. Stop before you skip ahead. Are you feeling stuck? Why not try Magic and the Occult at magic.me, my school for magic, meditation, and mysticism. That's right, because today's sponsor is me, because I don't have sponsors, because sponsors won't touch my content with a 10-foot pole. That means my sponsor is you and your further spiritual education at magic.me, as seen on the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, Midnight Gospel, Days Digital, Gaia Online, Netflix, Team Human, Vice, and not yet updated on the site, Tetragrammaton with Rick Rubin. Just check out all the stuff that you can learn. The Magic of Tarot with world-renowned tarot master Lon Milo Duquette. Introduction to Magic with me. Meditation, chaos magic, astrology, meditation, unleashing your true will, and lots more. And of course, we're about to start a brand new course, the Adept Initiative 2, which starts on the 16th. You still have time to join. It's going to be incredible. The Adept Initiative 1 changed people's lives all over the world, revolutionizing not just their ability to master the occult, but to master their finances, to master life, to revolutionize their career, their relationships, everything. Everything. It's a true alchemical transformation process, and Adept Initiative 2 is going to be even better. I mean, just look how much I've improved the video quality since I filmed this ad for it a few months. It's going to be phenomenal. Check out what students are saying. They are over the moon, pun intended, with how excited they are about this course. And check it out. You're going to be learning all kinds of cool stuff from ceremonial magic to Kabbalah to astral projection. We're talking about the big leagues of personal transformation and consciousness evolution here. You're going to have an incredible time. Meet us in class. It's adept.magic.me. You still have a few more days to sign up, but that's it. All right, back to the show.